closeness is not necessarily there unless it's there.
Unless you give it.
Unless you give it.
You can give and give.
Yes, you
And
can.
get.
Yes,
And
you
I don't
can.
think we have expectations of getting a quid pro quo.
Of course not.
It should not come because I gave you.
Of course. Of course. And then there are people who have personality disorders in this world. There are people who raise your kids and you've done the best you can, and you might have done an excellent job, and they are born with some sort of personality disorder that no matter what you give them, it's never enough. No matter how much warmth, no matter how much closeness, it's never enough. I have one patient, it's heartbreaking. I've known her for years. She is and was an excellent, excellent mother. Her son married a woman with a personality disorder, avoidant personality. So she avoids her mother-in-law like the plague. Her mother-in-law walks into her house, she'll say hello, she'll put down a glass of water, she'll go into her bedroom. It's horrific. It's horrible. Is this daughter-in-law wrong? 100%. She has a personality disorder. She needs help.
What does the mother-in-law do? How does she?
Okay,
How does she react to that, and what should she do to correct it?
So the mother-in-law, they're married and there are kids. So that's an important. It's not like they're dating. They're married. They have kids. It's a done deal. Her son is happy with this woman. If she complains to this woman, if she complains about this woman too much, she's going to affect her son's shalom bias issues. It's not a good situation. She's also a divorced woman herself, and her son has one goal in life. Anyone want to guess what the goal is? You got it. Stay married no matter what. So, she has to tread very lightly. And again, you're right. Why is the burden falling to her? She's been a single mom and raised her kids beautifully. Life isn't fair. It's not fair that the burden falls on her. But it does. So what does she do?
Does it really fall on us, or do we make an incorrect assumption that it does?
It depends on every relationship.
But we're talking in generalities now.
Depends on the relationship. You're still role models. And let me tell you something. I'm 40-something years old, and I still look at how my parents react to everything and learn from it. My mother was extremely, extremely close to her mother. When her mother passed away, my mother mourned, but she didn't do excessive mourning. She didn't fall apart. She coped. To me, that was a lesson. You mourn, you love, but you don't get to stay in bed and fall apart. It just doesn't work that way. So your kids are watching you, whether you realize it or not, and they're learning and internalizing more than you realize. So is it your obligation to set a good example? I think it's helpful.
Isn't there a point where you say, that's it, I've had it, I don't want any more? I mean, look, I gave birth to our children, we brought them up, we took them to the pediatricians, we paid for their college. But now, isn't there a point in life where, I'm in my terminal years of my life, that I should be more concerned about me and say, heck with it. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Absolutely. 100%. And example, I have a client, she's very upset her in-laws go away for Pesach. Her view, the daughter-in-law's view, is let's have a nice big family Seder. She wants her in-laws to come to her. She's willing to cook and clean and serve. Her in-laws are not interested. They want to go to a resort. It's too bad on her. Her in-laws are entitled to go to a resort if that's what they want to do. And that's what they choose to do. So she can try to make it as nice and pleasant for them, and if they want to come, great. But if they don't want to come, that's their right. That's
and
their
we
right.
have certain, we have certain thoughts, we have certain rights. And from what I've been hearing from you for the past hour, I may be wrong, is that we need to overcome our rights in favor of trying to keep, so to speak, a nice family relationship.
I'm sorry if I gave that impression. I certainly didn't mean to. I think that there are a lot of people of my generation who are extremely demanding of their parents, whether it be for babysitting services or finances. And I think that setting boundaries with those kids are not only helpful to yourself, but it's helpful to them, because they're going to need to stand on their own 2 feet. So if I gave that impression, I truly, truly apologize. Because you're entitled to your own life. You know, you retired, maybe your dream was not to sit and watch your 3 grandkids under the age of 5, and even if your daughter wants to go to medical school, that's not your dream. So she has to find other babysitting arrangements. And maybe you saved money all these years so that you could vacation or live on a certain level, and you sheet the tuition because your daughter-in-law or son-in-law wants to buy product is just not your value, and that's really okay.
Thank you.
I think the question is, how do you express that to the child, that there are certain boundaries you don't want them to overstep, whether it be emotional, whether it be financial?
I think you say to them, I love you, and the message that you want to give is, I love you, I respect you, but this is what I can do, and I can't do more. And everyone has their own limit about that. I have a client, she's been depressed for 30 years, major depression. She suffers terribly. Nobody should know from it. When she cannot babysit even for an hour for her 5-year-old granddaughter. It doesn't work. She can't do it. She can't do it. So what she does say, what she needs to say to her daughter is, I wish I could be of more help to you. I can't. I'm not able to. Now, with depression, very often it's a physical ailment. Everyone's very, very sympathetic about it. In other words, if this woman had a stroke, nobody would expect her to babysit for her granddaughter for an hour. She's depressed. Her daughter doesn't understand it, but she needs to continue to set the boundary. And that's what she needs to do. And if there's another way she can help her daughter that works for her, great. Maybe she can say to her, I can't babysit, but you know what? I make fish every Friday for Shabbos. When I make 1 loaf of the filter fish, I'll make you a 2nd loaf. And the daughter has to accept that.
I think you also have to tell your kids that you're doing the best that I think you also have to tell your kids that we're doing the best that we can, and may not be for you. And I think that's what we have to understand. We bring our children up in a certain way. Like you said, maybe in a front house or whatever. It may not be for them. And I think that you have to understand that. You know, just like we did with our parents. I know there were a lot of things that my brother and I did that my parents didn't want us to do, but it was a different type of generation. My parents were more European, we were more Americanized. My brother wanted to go to an out-of-town college, and my father thought that the world was coming to an end. So, you know, it's different, and just our kids, their lifestyle is different than ours was. You know, today most women do work. The kids, everybody is busy. So you have to understand that and accept it.
I agree.
And you know, I don't think that you're you know, bending towards them, but I think you just have to be accepting of their lifestyle.
I agree. But I also say it's hard. I mean, I have a neighbor now, lovely, lovely woman, a woman in her 90s, and she just said to me, I spent my entire life being a caretaker. I took care of my parents, I took care of my children, and I took care of my husband. I'm in my 90s. My kids don't live around me, and they're very busy with work and kids. Who's going to take care of me? I mean, that was heartbreaking. That was beyond heartbreaking.
But you do hope that these kids, that she's given them something, and when push comes to shove, yeah, they're going to come and they're going to help her.
And they do. They come twice a month.
Okay.
But it's not what she would want. And it's very, very, very sad. It's actually heartbreaking.
What's the old saying? Life isn't fair.
Right.
So,
Right. But it hurts.
Yeah, of course.
They're not bad kids. They come twice a month, and then the grandkids come. There's always people in and out. But it's not the consistency of one child who's your caretaker who puts out the meds for you every morning.
That's right.
So I'm very interested in the 5-year mourning, and I think that just as one mourns a beloved person who passes away, a parent, a sibling, whoever, that we have to make decisions about how we're going to reconfigure our lives and go on. And I think also it's very helpful in this period, and particularly the period of reflection, we actually reflect on how we're going to go on in terms of the relationship. And one thing that I think is very helpful is that inevitably, with an adult child, especially a married child with children of their own, we have to do two things. One is that we need to build a new kind of loving relationship. It's not the same loving relationship we had when they were little kids, when they were teenagers, when they were at home, but it's a new one. And the other one, and so part of that is, the second part of that is the step back. We're not the center of the universe anymore. Certainly we are entitled to have expectations, we are entitled to have decisions, we are entitled to have a life of our own, and we're not prepared to put up with rudeness or unacceptable behavior from either our children, in-laws, grandchildren, whatever. That it is an opportunity for us to look at the good and to create new opportunities of relationships based on being accepted of the other person as well.
I think that's true, and I think that brings me to another point that I had forgot. Thank you. I think that brings me to another point that I forgot to say, is that trust the process. You know, I've told you some horrific stories, but generally speaking, people have, the relationship heals. There's disappointments, it hurts, people mourn, but you get over it, and the relationship becomes close again. And it might not be exactly the way you wanted it, and it might hurt, but the room for relationship is still there. Even when kids make very different choices. It might not be what you envisioned, but it could still be good, okay, closeness, good enough.
Most of the conversations and questions I've heard here concern between parents and child. But there's another dimension to that, and that is parents, grandparents, and grandchildren. And so there is a totally different, 2 generations removed. And there's great concern on, I know, all our parts. Where's the feelings for the grandparents? They don't relate anymore to the grandparents. They have too many activities at school, their friendships, their peer concerns, and not only that, now they're texting amongst each other, and there's no time for thinking, there's no time for reflection and thinking with grandparents. Can the grandparents teach them anything? Do the parents of these children tell their children, Zadie or Bobby or whoever it is, you can learn from them?
I hope so, because if not, then the grandkids are really missing out on a lot.
Exactly. I think that that's become the situation, especially when there's long distances, a few hundred miles or even a few miles.
I think that the parents definitely should encourage the kids to learn from their grandparents, for themselves and for their kids, for the wisdom. I do have a neighbor, also an old man, and he said it does. And this is amazing. And again, I don't want to put the burden on you, but this is what he told me he done it. It doesn't work. His grandkid is into some sort of, I don't know if it's baseball, basketball, hockey. So he follows the sport. So he can at least, he can talk to his grandson about that and call and say, hey, great, your team won the game. So at least there's that connection that builds it. And again, I think I'm feeling guilty that I'm putting the burden on you, but it does work. But it does work.
Yeah, it's what you just said about sports. I mean, when my grandson was young, whatever, I realized, I was going to have a meaningful conversation if I was going to follow baseball. So I got into it. And something, it worked, was then he will text me or something, did you hear what the Yankees acquired in Virginia? It's not such a terrible thing.
It's not terrible.
But I also want to say, the difference, I think, one of sometimes the difference is the relationship between parents and children. I think in this generation, it's the absence of fear. Now, as much as I love my parents, and I'm very, very close to them, I feared them. I was afraid. Not necessarily for physical punishment, but afraid of disappointing them, afraid of they should be disappointed with me. I mean, my mother is almost 30 years, but sometimes I'll try on a dress and I'll say, Mommy wouldn't like this on me. It's still in my mind. And our children do not fear us. I mean, certainly my children do not fear their parents. Believe me, there's no fear there.
I think you are. Yes, I think you are 100% correct in a lot of ways, but I think they don't want to disappoint you. They might not fear you, but I think that a lot of kids are very, very, very concerned, even adult kids, about disappointing their parents. And one thing I noticed in couples that I treat is that when the in-laws of either set is coming over, you know what's important to your parents, and the husband and wife start to fight about those things. So, which is okay, but the bottom line is they don't want to disappoint their parents. So if you come from a very proper, formal family and your parents are coming over, all of a sudden it really concerns you that your son's not using the right fork for the gefilte fish and the right fork for the chicken. Where 3 weeks ago it didn't matter, but you know your mother is going to say something. And then I think that there is that fear of disappointing. I think there is. But you're right about the fear. The fear is gone. The fear is gone.
I don't think it's fear. I think it's respect. I remember when I was in grammar school, the teacher, the principal, you had real respect for them. Today, that's all gone. Police, everyone, they don't respect power at all.
I think you're right. I think that is a true commentary about society. I'm not sure, but I think the Gemara says, I'm not sure, I'm not a rabbi, but I think the Gemara says that as we come closer to the time of Mashiach, this is one of the things that's going to change. The weather, how kids respect their parents, same-sex marriages. So the good news is we're close, right?
And I think one thing that our generation and our times do have that previous generations didn't have is being able to talk to our kids. You know, being able to talk about our feelings, going to therapy, learning from therapists how to become closer. You know, the nurturing, the affection. I don't think that, I remember my guardian baby, I didn't have a relationship with them. You know, my parents, I think I have a better relationship, a closer relationship with my grandchildren. Even though my parents were close, I think I'm more involved with my grandparents' everyday feelings, their lives, their activities.
Do you like that, or do you resent it?
I love it.
Oh, okay, good. Good.
I think it's a benefit that we have these days.
Good. I think if it works for you and you love it, that's wonderful. Or if you're like this gentleman, feeling like you want a little distance, that's also great and wonderful. And they're both fine.
I think you mentioned before you have to be creative. So 2 strategies that I have that are working. I have a 13-year-old granddaughter. So she and I email each other every day. And it's just very brief. You know, I ask her questions about her classes or activities. She emails me. And I know everything that, that's happening during the week. And it's great. And the other thing we do is every Sunday at 9 a.m., they know that Bubby's going to call. And so I talk to the whole family, and they have things they want to share. So those 2 strategies have really...
A regular email and a regular weekly call. I think that's amazing. I think that's fabulous. I really do. Good.
All right, I want to say 2 things, very simple. I for a long time, had a difficult time relating with my children. Every time we got up, we get quite a few. But I found one thing that seems to work quite well, and that maybe just personally to me, is I'm very silly with them. Very silly. I ask them silly, silly questions. I try to be as literally funny and silly with them as I can, and they really seem generally to respond quite well to it, and that's it. My other point of question is, do you conduct workshops?
So, okay, so Ruth Rails, privately I see people privately. In my private practice, I have cards. I'm also working at Ruth Rails, and we are starting workshops to help this issue. So, feel free to take either or both cards, and we will be doing workshops, we will be doing classes, we will be doing lectures. If you want to meet with me one-on-one, I'm happy to meet with you in my private practice one-on-one. But yes, the answer is yes. There's also a great book out there, but I'm blanking on the author. The name of the book is When Parents Hurt. The author, I think, is Cole or Coleman, but I don't remember his first name. When Parents Hurt, and there's an entire book about what a lot of people have been saying about how this generation pushes away their parents a lot quicker than the previous generations. And again, I would hope, he talks about parents who have nothing to do with their parents. I hope that none of us have that situation. But that's what this, the book is a very helpful book. I think it's Joshua Coleman.
I was just thinking, one of the things my daughter assures me with my grandchildren is that their manner of communicating in general, not just to us, but to everybody, is through text and through social media and through even their best of friends, even if they're in the same room with somebody. So to be aware of learning how to text to my granddaughter has been great. And when she says, Grandma, I love, I had to text to her, which I don't know, and not the end of it, I don't hear from her again. But, that was enough for me. I mean, but my daughter pointed that out. That is the way to learn how to communicate in a way that is regeneration communication.
I think that's very important. And you're very right, they communicate with each other the same way. You can see two girls sitting in a room texting each other. It's strange. So great. And there's a lot of problems with it. They're saying that it's rewiring the brain. There's a great book about it called Disconnected or Connected Alone. I'm not sure the name of the book. Alone Together. The name of the book is Alone Together, about how we're in a society where we're all together, but we're all alone. And it's written by an MIT scholar who has researched, what it's doing to people's brains and relationships. So I definitely think it's a problem. Okay? It was great meeting everyone.